Alright, today we are looking at the official Handbook to the Marvel Universe, update 89. I think throughout the entire unboxing, I called it the 89 update, even on the thumbnail and the video title. And you know what? I think 89 update is better than update 89. I wanted to look at this issue in the instance that someone maybe had every issue of this series except for issue 7. Here is the full cover image. We have got characters reflecting stuff inside. And you have got to ask yourself how hastily assembled some of these were when they managed to not include a modest it character like Thyroid Mary on the cover, but they have multiple members of TechNet there, or as I like to call them, DrekNet. Fucking garbage characters. I will not be focusing on their profile. We start with the profile for the Serpent God, and I thought this would be good to have a refresher on SeaWorld attacks. The Serpent God is the main threat in SeaWorld attacks, and it is a very credible threat, but the problem is SeaWorld attacks doesn't convey that, and instead an issue of What If based on SeaWorld attacks sells the Serpent God far better than the crossover did. Peter Sanford and Son, the chief writer on this series of Handybooks, he was involved with SeaWorld attacks, namely the backstory and the saga of the Serpent God, and this is a really decent profile due to that. The Serpent God was one of the first life forms to exist on Earth. It and Chiffon, they were the first truly malicious entities to manifest on Earth. The Serpent God has ties to all these different corners of the Marvel Universe. There is the Serpent Art, there is SeaWorld, there's Conan the Barber, and there's even Seth. In SeaWorld attacks, we learn that Seth, the Egyptian god of evil and death, in the days of ancient Egypt, he stole the Serpent God's worshippers for himself. He pretended to be the Serpent God, and that they had been mispronouncing his name all these years. Really good little connection they make, and they have never done an obvious story like the Serpent God trying to get revenge on Seth. Seth is a pretty decent 4-villain, which makes his completely unintimidating name all the worse. Honourable mention for my top 10 sexiest women in the official Handbook to the Marvel Universe 89 update, Gangster Silver Surfman's bird. Ron Lee art, that is Stanley Lee's little brother. I would say a big tragedy with the Marvel Handybooks where they went out of vogue when Ron Lee was arriving. He would have been great for these sorts of pictures, the character pictures. The revamped Handybooks from the 2000s, they eventually get one dedicated artist, and even the Master Edition from the 90s, they had Neil Pollard as the main artist doing the pictures. Ron Lee would have been a good pick for if they had kept doing these style Handybooks and wanted one artist to do all the art to create a consistency. I do like the decision those later Handybooks made to have one artist. I think it is far more resourceful and helpful to have the characters depicted in a uniform style. It's useless when you've got someone like Liverpool's very own Paul Smith being a very clean cyclist, and then you have Bill son of a bitch drawing a distorted, stylised caricature of cannonballs. Good artists with a strong style, like John Bogdanovic or Bethany Belieber, they can rein it in and do something like this. Even Bill son of a bitch used to be able to do proper art, but then he retreated into the defence of being an outsider alternative artist. And if you didn't like it, then you have got an uncultured simpleton brain that cannot understand the genius of a picture of a woman made up of giant isometric squares. There are so many characters at Marvel who are seemingly based on Tom Beevort. We have Speedy Bal's here, art by Steve Dittman. This is before he joined the New Warriors. His profile doesn't mention him trying out for the Avengers in Captain America 352. And I'm bringing that up because in a few pages we have the Supreme Soviets. So they could have added a quick sentence at the end about Speedy Bal's unsuccessfully auditioning for the Avengers. Now this woman here, she nearly got in my top 10 purely on the basis of her thick thighs. For ages, I thought this character wasn't even canon, but she apparently teams up with the New Muties at some point. I said I wasn't going to start, and I think it would be funnier if I still didn't start. But this is also an indictment of writer Peter Gilbert. Among his many dreadful Defenders characters, we have this one. A would-be opposite number to the beautiful bald lady Moongarden. A nemesis of sorts. This is how shit Peter Gilbert is. Give her air and swap moon for sun. Fuck off, you pathetic act frauds. I do not know how they filled even a page with her profile. But the surprise is that there is 2 pages. This is a character with 2 appearances in shit Avengers Spotlight backup stories. Good thing I didn't include characters featured in other characters' images, because there is someone who would really have made a big impact on my top 10 sexiest women in these Andy books. The Supreme Soviets rechristened the People's Protectorate after this. Then they gone back to Soviet Super Soldier Boys for some reason. Then finally, Kurt Busey gave them the name Winter Guard. I don't often say nice things about Kurt Busey, but I think he made the right decision by giving them a name largely unrelated to the Russian political landscape. It means that it never has to be updated or changed again, unless global warming stops Russia having snow. To answer my question from yesterday's unboxing video, Nazi B-Man did indeed have a profile in the 83 series, but not in the 85 one. There were characters like that, characters who received profiles in the original series and then had done nothing since, so they felt the original profiles were fine. The members of the Galactical Guardians are another example of that. I also decided to not bore you with the tales of how problem-fraught the editing of yesterday's unboxing was. I think it is a good video in the end, and the world doesn't need to know how it is unbelievably lucky that it is good. The amount of fucking problems and glitches when I was editing it. Go and watch it though. It took me 9 fucking hours to edit, and about 3 hours of that was quality checks to make sure that audio hadn't glitched for the 50th time, or a random transition had been inserted for no reason. Some of these profiles, the secondary picture is also new. I think this is new art, but a better example of that is in issue 8, where Wang is clearly done by Michael Elboy, who does the main picture too. My pick for this issue's Mercy Skip This Page decision. Crash Thompson can gander L2. Tom Stone. Mary James looks nicer there than in her own profile. Not because she is in peril or being abused here. I mean because Brie Larson's granddad draws the picture of her in her profile, and he has never drawn a sexy woman in his life. Mainly because he doesn't draw sexy women. He draws barely pubescent women for his self-insert to fuck up the Tapow. I think she might have been a surprise for inclusion in my top 10, but the picture of her is great. Very beautiful. Gorgeous. Here is Steve Engletine's offensive stereotype of a Jewish person. It makes me feel less bad about insisting he is mentally unwell, to see this and how repulsive his mind can be. I think I have talked about this character before and how I disagree with Marky Mark's objective with the creation of this character. Had she had a better, sexier picture, this could have been a candidate for my top 10 too. We end with Thyroid Mary, who only came in at the number 10 spot on my top 10 sexy women in this series. And don't get us wrong, she is very sexy. That is her entire shtick. She is sexy, but at the same time, she is very scenario-based. Her picture alone isn't the sexiest thing ever. Her picture also doesn't quite follow the guidelines from the original Andy books. She is looking down and you cannot really see her face. Maybe that is why she ranked so low. This is the actual final profile. Not sexy. That is issue 7 of the 89 update of the Andy books. I love the Andy books. They are so much fun to read. And that is something not many people think. Sometimes reading about stories in the Andy books is more fun than actually reading them. This is... Actually, I want to expand on that. It is imagination. If you've not read the story they are summarising, you imagine the story they are describing. And obviously there are people with shit imaginations out there. DC writer John Jeffries, for example. But I am not one of them. And I didn't mean that as a boast or a brag. I can imagine so many different versions of the same write-up. And to be honest, to me, that is maybe worth so much more than actually reading the story. With the Andy books, I have a blueprint for my mind and my imagination to work with, and then, fuck it, I'm getting off track and carried away with babble. 7 updated thumbs up.